Been waiting on my moment to heal, heal. Next it's time to optimize, optimize. H2O's essential to life. Give it a try, optimize.
Well, good evening, everybody. Thank you again for joining us for our third episode of the H2O podcast. As always, I'm going to do a quick little introduction, but before I even get started with any intro, I just want to set an intention for this podcast, as I've done these last couple of weeks, to let you know that possibilities of all kind are available to you and I. So let that sit in your mind and in your heart. Possibilities of every kind is available to you. Whatever you put your mind to, you can do it. It can and it will be accomplished. So that's my welcome to you all. Okay. As we're getting started, I just want to let you all know that I do have a couple of materials and product that you can purchase. If you go to my website, I'm not able to take you there as I have been these last couple of weeks. But if you go to www.h as in heaven, the number 2, O as in octopus, -1.com. Again, that's H2O-1.com. It'll take you to the home page. There's at least 2 products that you can purchase. The book Almost Doesn't Count and the single Optimize is out. I also have a couple of workshops in rotation for this month and really for the next couple of months for my nutritional coaching as well as my transitional coaching. So make yourselves available to that. I will make sure that that's in the description box for the YouTube channel, but please go and support, check out the material. Hopefully it's something that can build you and hopefully educate you. All right, now that those niceties are out the way, so you may be wondering, what is our topic about? You may be wondering why I chose business and how does that have anything to do with H2O healing to optimization? Just let me read a few things to you and hopefully it'll make more sense. But as we think about healing and optimization, healing doesn't just remain in our sacred space. If you really think about it, healing is something that we begin to, it helps us to participate in life much better than where we were before, okay? So I want you to think about this. First statement, quote, woke doesn't mean broke. Oftentimes we have this image of being, and let me say who I got that from. That's from a guy named Billy Carson, who may be too woke for some folk, but I thought that the title of the book was very profound. In just a few pages reading into his book last year really set a catalyst for myself in terms of how to start putting forth your intentions as well as starting to collect how you do business. But there's this stigma around spirituality that you have to be broke and that you have to have this very sorrowful, very just downtrodden kind of image. But that is not at all what I believe that spirit, universe, or whoever you serve has for you. We are living in a place of abundance. And if you just go outside right now and you look at the plentiful vegetation that we have around us, it represents that abundance. Okay? So why H2O Business Podcast? Because we heal and optimize. As we heal and optimize, it will have an impact in the way we are participating in life, especially how we do business. Our businesses embody our spirituality, philosophy, and overall lifestyle. I want this H2O podcast to focus on as much of the human experience as possible, bearing in mind the subjects of healing to optimization and the overall hows. How do we do it? Okay, so really initiating the conversations and bringing people on the platform that can begin to share tools on how we go about doing that. I chose our guests tonight because they represent incredible stories of reinventing themselves, and true resilience. So you all really need to give yourselves an applause for that. Indeed, indeed. So what, you may be asking, get ready. Firstly, get your pen and your paper out, because I'm quite sure that both of our guests tonight are going to have some information to share with you that will uplift, encourage, and perhaps give you that edge for your nexus. So this will be the Game Changer Business H2O podcast for all of my followers, and hopefully for some new followers that their platforms will bring. So Coach Miller, you'll remember this quote from our dear Coach Bowles: "For your intellectual and philosophical pleasures."
All right.
I present to you Miss Andrea Robinson, none other the queen of my heart, my mother.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening.
Okay, and
I am, can you hear me?
hold on, Draco, and just confirm that you're on mute, because you know I can't see you. Okay, okay. Mrs. Robinson, would you please introduce yourself?
Yes, good evening. Women's thinning hair and restoration expert, Andrea Robinson.
Right. Okay, and if you can, just share with us a little bit about your story and tell us how you got involved. If you can, start backwards, because you're currently working on restoration for the hair, wigs, and things like that, but that's not where you started. Can you just start backwards and just kind of give us a little bit on how you got into the industry?
Well, I think it's something I've always known that I wanted to do, starting as a little girl, always messing around with hair, cutting hair. As I was in school, going to track meets, braiding people's hair on the bus, and then some things changed, wrong turn. So I got back on the right track and started cosmetology school, graduated and started there. And I can truly say that I've been in my profession over 30, right at 36 years. And so being in the cosmetology field, I am now reinventing myself within my same profession with the hair loss business.
Right. And so with this part of your career with the hair loss profession, you've been doing this for how long now?
I've been a certified hair loss specialist for right at 7 years.
Okay, all right. And let me do this justice, because I don't know how much my mom would share of her own story, and I'm not going to put her story on blast because she really does need to write a book. But let me say that as she is talking about her career as an entrepreneur and someone who's been in the industry for 30 plus years, she's done this as a mother of 4, as a wife, and as a almost 40-year-old individual. To look back and see what my parents have accomplished really has been something out of this world. And so what jewels that I may not hear her touch on, if she gives me permission, then I am going to have her to talk about some of those things, because I do think it's important for people of all ages to hear, but especially young women, to understand that just because you have hardships early on does not mean that you have to stop believing in your dreams. And it doesn't mean that you have to stop believing that you can be more than what your situation may be telling. So that being said, Ma, I'd like you to talk about what it means firstly to reinvent yourself, and how is that really related to your career?
Reinventing myself is just me finding a different passion within what I'm already doing. I see within this time, with the world we're living in right now and everything going on, so many people are losing their hair due to stress, alopecia, poor diet, and I'm seeing more and more that with people sitting in my chair. And so I've always followed God. And with me, you know, one day I was just at a hair show in Atlanta, and I just happened to walk into a class, not knowing, you know, what to expect. And they were talking about hair loss. I truly believe that was God just put me where he wanted me to go. He was just ordering my footsteps. And so once I took that class, I'm thinking, you know what? Actually, I'm thinking, I'd like to do this, you know, because for me, it's working smarter and not harder. But I'm also helping women deal with these stressful times, you know, and our hair is our jewel. And so with so many women losing their hair, I'm thinking, you know, I mean, it struck a chord with me because it's just a passion, how I see how the stress, the physical and mental stress of, you know, thinning hair or complete baldness, you know, and I love doing what I do. So to me, it's not even like a job, you know. I get joy out of what I do and seeing people's lives transform.
Sure. And you know, it's crazy because I didn't even think about how the hair industry would be impacted in that kind of a way. Of course, I think we've talked about how during COVID, the hair industry has continued to flourish financially and generating revenue. But I didn't think about the aspect of how stress is having an impact on more women losing hair. So I think that that's very interesting to point out. And it's something for not just your clients in particular, but I would even say some of the nutritional clients that are out there. These are things that you can really tune into because there's some different kinds of resources for everybody.
Right.
As you think about women in particular, who, of course, hair is just it's a hot topic. When you think about hair, what does that really do for you, knowing that your profession is to help beautify or to perhaps restore women's confidence, all in a hairdo? What does that really do for you?
It brings me complete joy just to see, and it was put to me like this, like we could help a woman feel better instantly with a hairstyle versus them going to a psychiatrist or psychologist that has to work overtime trying to get this person to feel better about themselves. When we can do it with a hairstyle, we can see women come in, you know, that won't look in the mirror, you know, that's, you know, just don't feel pretty, you know, and then bam, when, you know, when they get their hair done, it's like, oh my God, you know, I never thought I could look like this, you know, I never thought I could, you know, this would look as natural on me. I feel more like myself now, you know, and that brings complete joy to me, you know, to see that I'm able to just help someone, you know, just by putting hair on a person's head.
Well, you think you're grown kind of answering that question like that, don't you?
What you mean?
You think you're grown talking about how you provide like this alternative confidence that psychologists can't provide.
Well, you know, that's what I was told. But the thing about it, there's a difference in someone that medically needs it versus someone that just does it, like me, for instance, just because I want to change up a hairstyle. Those people that really need it, those are the ones that I want to affect, you know, because it messes with people mentally and physically to where it can significantly impact their lives, you know, because some people get depressed, they don't want to go out, you know, it limits their lifestyle, is what I want to say.
Well, you know what, and I want to go back on something. Being your second child, something that all of us know that you say, and growing up, it was something that used to irritate us at times. But it was, yeah, you're gonna do it. And I really want to talk about that because if I can steal the spotlight for one moment, for me, and I wrote some of this in my book, but I've put a couple of different pieces together around that idea about, yeah, you're gonna do it, what it's represented for me. And I want to ask you the question, where did that come from and what it represents to you? But I want to share this story that in many of my travels, when things have gotten really challenging, that voice would often come back in my head, yeah, you're gonna do it, when I would feel like I don't want to do this no more. I don't know why I'm doing this. And this is crazy. When I was over in China, just going back and forth and traveling and trying to start a business, it was just, there were moments where it became really overwhelming. But it was that voice that came back that gave me motivation. So I'm going to put you on the spot. I know it wasn't part of the questions, but I really want you to speak to, where did that come from? And why was that something that you would often say?
Because I felt like when I went through my challenges and had to quit school, I felt like y'all didn't have a choice. I mean, I didn't have a choice, but y'all had choices. You didn't have anything holding you back other than you didn't feel like doing it. That was not going to work for me. You were going, if you started something, you were going to finish it, because I never wanted y'all to get in that mode of start and stopping. You know, it's all about, it helps you to be committed and dedicated to something, whether you like it or not, because in the long run, that's going to work for you. Because in business and being an entrepreneur, there are so many times where you just want to quit and give up because things are not going the way you want them to go, or you may have slow periods. But in the midst of that, you learn how to, like the Bible says, like the ant, put back. In your slow days, you put back, and that way you can ride and figure out other things within your profession that you can do to create other income off of that. So you don't ever give up just because you don't feel like it, or, you know, oh, it's raining outside or it's snowing. Just think about it. If you were working for a company, you would get up and go to work for that company. You have to have that same grind for yourself, and even harder.
Well, and there was so much in what you just said that I could really unpack and spend a little time. Then if I get the time, I am going to do that. But if you don't mind, I want to put out there that you were a teenage mother. And I think that that's important to share, because the statistics of teenage mothers having kids and the success of their children are slim to none. And I think that's very important to talk about, because we have so many teenage parents right now who are living in certain circumstances or conditions that are less than favorable. And they starting to live according to their societal structures or what somebody has told them. And to see that your story alone, you all have continued to make strides, and not just, you know, we had our moments where we were living paycheck to paycheck or whatnot, right, but you all have made a long lasting, enduring career as teenagers. And I think that that's a huge part. You got, all your children have graduated from high school.
Right.
All of your children have gone on to some kind of post-secondary training or has opened up their own business. My younger sister, who has, you all have brought into your business, and you all have cultivated her skills as a beautician. So all of these success
as
stories,
a
cosmetologist, my bad.
Yeah.
But as a cosmetologist, you all have cultivated success just within the family structure on very little. And I think that that's important to talk about. Can you just kind of speak to that, if you don't mind, the resilience that you developed from being a teenage mother, going through some of those hardships and still coming out on top?
A lot of it is, I had parents that were entrepreneurs, and I had somebody to go to. I actually, living with my parents, seeing how they got up and went to work every day, and and they had their own business, me never wanting for anything, but they had their own business, getting up same time every morning, every day. It was never any of this, oh, I don't feel like going today. Oh, I made this much money today, so I ain't gonna go to work. It was always consistency. It was always putting, making sure that they put food on the table. They never veered from that. And one more thing I want to say, as being a teenage mother and getting married at such a young age, I had a husband that believed in me more than I believed in myself.
Mm-hmm.
He would always tell me how good I was. He would always tell me, you're smart, you're this, you're that, you can do this, you can do this. And even, like I say, even when I didn't feel it myself, nobody else knew that, and I think that's a problem with a lot of young people, young teenage mothers. They don't have someone to feed into them positive. It's always, it may be negative situations that they're in, and they stay in that negative mode. I had my husband who was positive, my parents who were positive and showed me the way on how to be an entrepreneur. And like one of the questions you asked me, what is the value of being an entrepreneur? The value is knowing who you are, whose you are, and don't let nobody tell you just because when you get out of school, you should charge this amount just because you just got out of school. What they fail to realize is you graduated out of that school and got your license. That made you a professional right there. And like you say, the stigma in the Black community about beauty and barbers is that we should start at this low pay. When you go work for a company that's I'm gonna say just a J.C. Penney's or Tony and Guy, when you got your license, you know what? You going in there and you charging what those people tell you to charge. They don't say, oh, since you just got out of school, you're gonna charge this amount. You're gonna charge the highest amount that they're charging. That's the thing that we have to start thinking when you're in business for yourself. Don't allow people to put this stigma on you that you just got out of school and this is what you have to charge. That devil is a lie.
That's right.
And so I had my parents, especially my daddy, he always told me, when you're in business for yourself, don't start no tabs, don't start this. I hate to say it, but he said family is the worst. He said because they expect discounts. He said, and you can't run a business and you can't keep a business giving out discounts. And I could tell you, he had his business until he died, and he'd been having that business since I was born in '68. So just getting those type of teachings along the way has helped me in my business.
Okay, and there's two other points I want to highlight from that, and I know you all we're going to get ready to kind of wrap yours up, but you talked about the ant and being able to store things away for the winter time. That takes discipline.
Yes.
It takes discipline, and I know in a society where instant gratification is running rampant. What can you say about that? How were you all, as a very young couple, raising children, able to manage storing things away for the winter time?
Because I was taught everything that you make, you don't spend. But let me tell you, we didn't start off like that. Let me tell you, we was paying Peter and Rob, or whatever that saying is. We were doing that too.
Yeah, I got you.
Yeah, but the thing about it is it's easy being an entrepreneur and you're getting cash flow like that. My mindset went to, you know what? I'm going to put all of my money in the bank for that week that I made and start paying my bills out of that instead of going to the mall, because that's something we would do. Go to the mall. As soon as you got paid, you going to the mall buying this and that, few groceries here. You just have to be disciplined to just treat it like it's a real business, as if you were getting paid at a company every week or every 2 weeks.
Like I said, ladies and gentlemen, if you didn't get your notepads out, you should have got them out when I told you get them out. That's a jewel. So make sure that you all recall and remember that it may be something simple, but it's something that we need to hear because everybody's in competition for our dollar.
Yes.
Before you get the paycheck, we see anywhere between 4,000 to 10,000 advertisements a day. And I'm quite sure that those advertisements are competitions for your attention and your dollar. So it's something for you to really keep in mind. Something else I want to come back to about the discipline that you learned from your parents. You know, one of the things I had the benefit of growing up in the household with your parents, my grandparents, and I remember the very early mornings, every
Yes.
early morning that I would see granddaddy and grandmama get up and go to work, and just the routine that they created. And to this day, it's something that is stick with me. I get up between 3:30 and 4 o'clock in the morning, and it's so crazy because all those years, when I say we used to go to church early on, we would get up about 5 o'clock in the morning,
Tell me,
every
tell me.
morning, every Sunday, to get ready for the first service. When our church was having 3 different services, I think the first service started at 7 o'clock,
Yes.
and we were up what 4:30 or 5
About
o'clock,
4:30, 4:30.
4:30, and we were there at no later than 6 a.m. before the doors opened. And
Yes.
it seemed extreme then, but what it was doing for us was helping us to understand discipline and
Yes.
helping us to understand where to prioritize our time. And I think that that's something very important to highlight.
Yes.
Something else that I want you to speak to before you get ready to leave, because I know that I'm competing with dinner time now, so I can't stick around. I can't get you sticking around too long. How do you want to be known for? What do you want to be known for?
I want to be known as a compassionate women's and thinning hair restoration expert, transforming women's lives on a daily basis, and just someone that actually cares. You know, I care about my clients, you know, and that's who I want to be known as, just, you know, that person.
Fantastic. And let me give a shout out. I don't know if my stepfather is there, but let me give a shout out to my stepfather because again, the two of them, I don't know if he's gonna get on the camera, but I hope he can hear me. Let me just
Yeah.
say I appreciate my stepfather dearly because of the support of my mother. That's just one of the things. But I greatly appreciate your support for my mother. Look at him. That's Black love, y'all.
Yeah, it is. 31 years.
31 years. But we have all had our ups and downs as a family. And one of the things that I'm grateful for is because one thing that we can say is that we're still here and we're still loving each other.
Yes.
And no matter what the trials have been, we have made it, we have made it, we have made it. And I'm so glad that we have been able to be alive in this part of our journey.
Yes.
Where we're seeing things come together as a family, and not just coming together as a family, but also coming together as a family in business. And I think that that's a powerful, powerful thing that you all have started to show us as kids, is to create an example of what it means to be committed to your partner and what it has meant to do business together. Because you all know that some couples do not do business well together, and they should not go into business together.
Right.
But to see how you all have managed to not just go into business together, but create a family and sustain a family with that. I think that speaks volumes, and I will forever remember that. And I want people to be aware of that, because you may be thinking that you can't do it, And you may be thinking that it's impossible, and you may be thinking that you can't heal through certain issues or you can't optimize in certain conditions. Well, let me tell you, we are a living testimony that no matter what happens, when you make a commitment first to God and then to each other, you find a way to work through it, and you find a way not just to survive, but to thrive. And so I want to applaud both of you for the great and wonderful job that you have done as parents, as adults, and as entrepreneurs, leaving a model for us.
But thank you.
Absolutely. Now y'all gonna get something to eat and stop looking at me like this brother better hurry up and quit talking. I'm hungry.
Okay, thank you. I enjoyed it.
All right, love y'all. Y'all enjoy.
Love you
y'all.
too.
Be safe.
All right, bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye. Brother Miller.
Brother Rod.
Well, man, let me do due diligence, if you will, and wrap that little section up, and then we're going to transition to yours. That for me was huge. That was an H2O moment for myself, to be able to have my mother of all people on a platform that to me, this is very dear, because my mother and my stepfather, but I'm going to honor my mother in this moment, has such an incredible story. My father has such an incredible story. She didn't perhaps want to share this, but I am going to share it. My mother was a teenage mother, 13 and 14 years old. Okay. I was born 9 months after my sister. And when I say my mother sacrificed for us, my mother dropped out of school in 9th grade. And my mother, what she's been able to do over her lifespan, most of her life, to work and to raise children, is unmatched. And I will forever sing my mother's praises. And, you know, as a kid, you don't understand all the nuances that your people, your family, your parents are, they're sacrificing for us kids, if you will. You don't understand it, and you don't see those sacrifices. Some things you do and some things you don't. But it's as you grow as an adult that you start to put things in perspective. And every year I look back and say, dang, my mother, my father, by this time they had kids who were this old, or they had kids that were this old. And when you put that into perspective as young parents, you realize how miraculous that really was, and it really is. And so I'm so glad that my mother and my stepfather had a chance to show their face, show their presence, and to grace the stage, if you will. And you all please go and support them. My mother is a great cosmetologist, as she always corrects me on things, but she's a great cosmetologist, as well as I'm going to be having some interviews with some of my siblings on the platform, that they'll be able to share their stories as well. But nonetheless, I'm going to quote Coach Bowles once again: for our intellectual and philosophical pleasures, we have none other than the great Draco Miller. And I'm so glad that this brother has graced my platform as well. Before he even gets started, you have to support this brother and what he's doing. He is a fantastic leader. I'm going to let him brag on himself, but this has been a friend, a brother that has been a confidant, someone who has stuck with me over the years, who have seen my growth. I've seen his growth, and I'm elated for the things that are already happening, but the things that are to happen. And so without further ado, I would like to introduce to you Brother Draco Miller. Please tell us who you are, what you do, who you are, and we will go on from there.
Well, first and foremost, that was an amazing intro, Brother Rod. I mean, you always bring us out.
Absolutely.
Like Steve Harvey said on the Kings of Comedy, do I bring them out or do I bring them out?
Yes, sir.
You do a phenomenal job, brother. And I want to, as we say, I want to give you your flowers now and just congratulate you and also thank you for giving me this platform and allowing me to speak to your audience, my audience, everyone's audience, and go from there. But for those that may not know me, my name is Draco Miller, and it is a pleasure to be with you guys this evening. And who am I? Well, I'm a lot of things. I'm a lot of things. I am a former college coach, college administrator, but more than anything, right now in this season, I am the creator of Lead You, which stands for Leadership, Education, Advancement, and Development. And so with that, I get the unbelievable opportunity to mentor and develop people, organizations, systems, you name it. I get the opportunity to motivate people. I get the opportunity to be keynote speakers, to be a keynote speaker. And I get to just be in the presence of people. And it's a passion project of mine. It's a passion of mine to be able to lead and mentor and develop. And so also being a business owner and a chief executive in another business. So I'm one that is, I guess you could say that has come full circle in some ways, but still utilizing the tools that were given to me throughout the year. So that's a little bit about me.
Nice, 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 nice. And there's plenty more to learn about the brother who has worn many hats, but has maintained the same person in each one of those roles. And that's something to be recognized. So if you can start us off with 3 interesting things about your career that no one else knows. Give us the tea.
I tell you what, here's an interesting thing. And this doesn't answer the question, but it's actually a part of the question. I don't know that there's anything interesting about me that people don't know. And here's the reason I say that.
Okay.
Because I really try to be an open book. I really try to be present in the moment, in moments, and I really try to use what I've gone through, whether they be ups or downs, whether they be trials or tribulations, whether they be new endeavors, and teach others. So as I manifest into various things, I bring that with me and I expand that to other people. So to answer the question, 3 interesting things about my career or about me that I've never shared, I've shared it all. I've shared, being a college football coach for 10 years in New Mexico, being a recruiter on the college level, being a college administrator, being a campus life director, and then going back into athletics and stepping out on the realm of business. So that's kind of a tricky one for me, which is odd. I mean,
it's so funny because my mother, she was like, I don't know about that one. I don't know if I can answer that one. So I don't know how to feel about the question now. I think it's a good question, but I may save that one to challenge you all a little bit later.
Yeah, I will say this. It definitely made me think because I truly try to be an open and authentic person. And so when I thought about it, when you asked me that question, I'm like, okay, wow. So have I really shared, this process? Because I want people to know this process, because we've all been around people. And for me, I'll say this. I learned so much by seeing others, by experiencing what they've experienced, because you learn what to do and what not to do. Yeah. Good, bad, or indifferent, right? So
well, and if I can, one of the things that I don't think many people know is you talked about the process. your transitions from different positions, I think, is very interesting. And I think it deserves some attention because, firstly, we know that for many decades now, students graduate with a degree and hardly ever actually use their degree.
Very true.
They go into a career that's completely unrelated to their degree. And it seems like you've been able, for the most part, have been able to maintain a certain integrity to stand within your degree. Your career and your degree has seemed to pair well, and I think that that's a rarity in our day. But you've also worn different hats that have not been related to your degree. And the way that you've been able to weave these positions together, I think has made for a very interesting career, especially as you are bringing that into your company, Lead You. So can you maybe share like what that transition has been? Because I know that that has not been an easy thing, but it seems like you have always been able to manage pulling that other better version of Coach Draco or Coach Miller into those positions. How have you been able to do that and still maintain the sense of consistency of, hey, I'm bringing my excellence no matter where I go, and we're gonna shine? Because I'm gonna tell y'all something. Let me get this in real quick, because I know you're ready to aim, shoot, fire. My two guests today are the first top 5 people when I think about business excellence. These two individuals, my mother in particular, is a woman of excellence. When her work ethic is unparalleled, and her ability to, again, just bring excellence to what she does, whether it's the way she dresses, whether she designs, whatever it is. Draco is another individual. If you have not seen how this brother brings his excellence to his work, and how he can transform an office, a room, a stadium. Speak to us, sprinkle us with some magic. Come on now.
Well, I'll tell you this, you are right. Many times we go to college, we know exactly what we want to do, we get a degree, and then we do the opposite. And we find ourselves in a tunnel, not knowing whether to turn around and go back or to press and go forward. I have been truly blessed to be able to utilize my college degrees and stay, as you say, within somewhat of the wheelhouse. And here's how I've been able to do it, because you're right. I have worn many hats. But I'm going to coin a phrase from football, or take from a phrase from football. As a coach, as a player, and Rod, you know this as well, the first thing that you teach is not the play, not the formation, not the depth of a route or the blocking scheme or whatever. And it doesn't matter what sport what you participate in, whether it's football or whether it's softball or baseball or basketball. The first thing that a coach does is lay down the foundation. They got to lay down the fundamentals of that sport. Now, those fundamentals may be specific to the triple option, if you will, like we ran in college when you were a player and when I was a player. But it could be for a certain thing, but you always start with the fundamentals. And I look at it as fundamentals equal foundation. And so no matter what goes on, no matter how you move, no matter how you jump, no matter how you change, that level foundation, if it's level, I should say, that foundation is always there. So you went to college to be an educator, and you came out and found yourself being an entrepreneur, but you rest on the foundations of what you were taught. So when I went from being a college football coach to all of a sudden that was no more, and then the hat was switched to a college recruiter, the foundation was still there. And I tell people this all the time. I went from recruiting student athletes, right, to recruiting students. So no, I didn't have to necessarily talk about the athletic performance and the athletic programs, but I was still selling them on the university. The foundation of recruiting was there. So then the hat switched and I became a director. Never been a director before, never thought about being a director before, right? Never had an experience of being a director, let alone directing 8 different departments under my tutelage. But the foundation was there because I was still leading and mentoring and developing students. And that's exactly what I was doing with my foundation as a football coach, leading, developing, and mentoring athletes, trying to take them from point A to point B. And so that followed me. Well, okay, then the hat switched again. So now as I'm in my comfort zone, I'm in my stride, I'm in my groove, if you will, and loving every minute of it, you go and now you're in a different arena, literally an arena, right? I went from being a director of campus life to now I'm in athletics, but hold on. It's in an athletic director role, building a brand new stadium. Now, hold on. I've never built a stadium.
Did we sit, were you on the committee when we were talking about even just building that,
Yes,
that stadium?
I was way before then, before it, when it was a thought in it was literally always a thought in the coach's mind that we needed a stadium and all that stuff, but then it died on the vine. And then it began to grow a little legs with some different power people, we'll say, and eventually got on the desk of Dr. Gamble, the university president. And then it was in its infancy stage. So from there, it was, okay, all the minds got together and I got to be in the room. And I tell people this all the time. It was almost as if Dr. Gamble and I went on a political campaign trail because we were going to the student body and going to everybody selling this stadium, this idea. And people may say, why? Well, because the university just didn't have the funds to pull out and bam, we're going to build a stadium. The students had to get involved, meaning they had to come up with money. They had to increase their student fees particularly for a stadium. So we went on this campaign trail. Well, now, okay, 88% of the student body votes in favor of this stadium. Well, now it's got to be built. And so I go from being a director of campus life, working with all these students and working with student government who cast the final vote of approval, to now, okay, Draco, work with the architects, work with the fiscal plant, work with all these people to get this thing built. Oh, and by the way, the students are gonna want tailgating. And so that was another mountain to climb. And where's the student section gonna be? And we're just moving dirt here. Yeah. And again, not having any experience, what do you do? Well, you go back to the foundation, right? You go back to fundamentals and you begin to build, because you can always draw on your fundamentals. So that's what I've been able to do in navigating the different hats that I've worn. And even when I stepped away after 16 years on a university setting, you want to talk about scary, being in a comfort zone of 16 years to branch out and bet on myself, because I'd given myself to all of these people, right? Given myself to all of these groups and teaching them how to do and all this stuff. And now I gotta take my words and put them into action. Not only that, knowing that, okay, you have a wife, you have kids, you have bills, you're a grown up. You're not just saying you're grown, but you're truly a grown up. And none of that stops. None of that stops because you're taking this leap. And so not knowing how to be an entrepreneur, except through the eyes of my father, which we'll probably talk about, but not truly knowing how to do it personally, you go back to your foundation, you go back to your fundamentals.
Well, and I mean, there's much to unpack just in what you shared, because I know you. And even though some of those pieces I was not aware of, actually, I didn't know that you went into recruiting, student recruiting. I didn't know that. Did not know
For
that.
4 whole months.
For how many?
4 months.
4 months. Now, I did obviously know that there was a transition that took place in the football department, and you all were no longer employed, I believe.
Well, here's the deal, Brother Rob, we can just be on it. You know, there's a comedian that's out there, and one of his catchphrases, he'll say to the host, or he'll say to someone, can we just keep it real? So I'm just gonna say, Brother Rob, can we just keep it real? Here's the deal. If you're out there listening to this podcast right now, you know this, you might not have experienced this, but in the world of coaching, we all understand this one rule. It's not if you get fired, but when you get fired. Okay. And it doesn't matter how fluff it is, whether it's with love or not, you are no longer in that position. And unfortunately, when it happened, but fortunately, we were relieved of our duties, if you will. The head coach was asked to resign. And with that, you know, they always tell the assistant coaches, I was an assistant coach, and they always say, well, you know, the new guy, he's going to interview you guys. He's going to see if you're a good fit and all that stuff. And sometimes that's truly the case, and sometimes it's not. But obviously, it's the prerogative of the new guy. That's 100% his prerogative to interview or not interview. Sometimes you have to change the culture, change the direction of the ship, and you kind of need all the other shipmates off. You want to bring your own, you know, seamen on there so that you can right your ship how you want to. And they decided to do that. But we worked for an amazing, and I have to say this, Dr. Gamble was an amazing president. We didn't win enough games, quite frankly. We just did not. We were a great staff. We did so much for the university, the community, outside of winning enough games. But he saw value in us. And I'll always respect him for that, because he could have just let us ride off into the sunset. But those that he truly saw value in and wanted to stay, he found positions. And one of the things that I became known for at Eastern was recruiting. And I began helping other sports recruit, or being the mouth of their recruiting, because I never saw a crowd I couldn't engage. I never saw a crowd that I didn't want to speak to. And I could really sell the university. And so Dr. Gamble said, what better position than to put him in enrollment services and let him go recruit. And for those 4 months, I was the #1 recruiter.
I have no doubt. I have no doubt. And it made sense when they announced you as the director for what was
Campus Life.
Campus Life. That it just made all the sense in the world, man. It felt good to have you on that side of the world, indeed, because you know you were just a person I can go to and be like, hey.
Yeah.
Something going on. I need somebody to talk to.
Absolutely. Yes.
Well, okay. So speaking about fundamentals, foundation, your father. So we got those 3 F's that are set in place: fundamentals, foundation, and your father. I know that you have shared with me, and of course, I've had the pleasure to go out to Brownwood and H2O come and serve you guys. And that was it was a phenomenal opportunity. I appreciate that. And I say that was phenomenal because that was the first time that I met your father. Yes. And that was the first time I actually met some of your family, your sisters.
Yes.
and to come on that premises and to see these trucks that had Draco Miller or Miller, well, is it Miller?
Draco Janitorial and Draco, yeah.
Okay, to see that on the side of the truck, and I'm like, now I see where he gets it from. They do things in excellence and in class, man, second to none. But to see like your ingredients, to see where you got some of this material from, not even knowing who your people were, to see that was so powerful for me, because it shows once again how your origins, your foundation really does set a precedence for where and how you go. Now, it doesn't mean if you started off with bad conditions, so to speak, or again, less than favorable conditions, same applies. Possibilities of all kinds are accessible to you, and you can do anything. It don't matter where you start. Right. But I will say there is something special and unique for people who can get that kind of leverage that you have with someone running a business. And I'm sure you probably saw your father start that business. Can you kind of speak to that and how that was important?
Oh, absolutely. Because the last thing that you just said was spot on. My dad has now been in business over 30 years. Wow. And I can remember like it was yesterday. My dad worked at MHMR, and he was a crisis intervention counselor. Wow. And so he worked with people with mental handicaps, and he did that, I want to say, for 11 years. And in the last 2 years of working, he just said there's got to be better out there. And there's just got to be better, whether that was financially, whether that was, his mental, whether that was physical, whatever better was, he just, in his mind, he said that there's got to be better. And he came to a crossroad in his mind where he said, I'm tired of working for other people and making them money. I want to do that. Look at what I pour. And it's so interesting as I'm saying this right now, I literally just said, right, Brother Rod, I literally just said, after 16 years of me pouring out to a university and pouring out to student after student, event after event, and so on, I needed to take my words and utilize them on myself. Well, 30 years ago, my dad was in the same crossroads, and I had no idea his thought process was, mine would be the exact same, right, some years later. And so he started a business. And you hear people say, I started this business out of the back of my trunk, or I started this business in my garage. We look at Amazon and Apple and Google, right? Some of those major companies started in a garage and a house that was, not this upscale, but some of them look dilapidated, if you will. Sure. So that old cliche in saying is very true, because my dad started that business out of the back of his 83 Buick LeSabre. Wow. Okay. And I'll never forget the first contract that he got. My dad owns a janitorial business, and it's one of the largest janitorial businesses in Brown County. And his first contract was with Weekly Watson. And Weekly Watson was a hardware store and a sporting goods store that dated all the way back to the 1800s. And this was before Ace True Value and all that. And now, Ace kind of taken over the hardware stores, if you will. And that was the first contract that he got. And I can vividly remember every afternoon at about 5:30, he would load up a mop bucket. He would load up a dust broom. He would load up a dustpan, a vacuum, and this little handle crate that had, various cleaning products in it. and he would put it in the back of that 83 Buick LeSabre. And he would drive to Weekly Watson, and Weekly Watson closed at 6 o'clock, I believe. And so he would get there about 5:30, and he would start at the back of the store. And this was a huge, huge warehouse. And he would start at the back of the store and work forward and clean. And that was the first contract that he ever got. And he built that company. I watched him build that company, number one, out of the back of his car, and number two, with one contract. And then I saw one contract turn to two, turn to three. And then about 5 years or so in, the big one came. And the big one was, he got the contract with Early Independent School District. And this was in 1991, 1992, if I'm not mistaken. And I'll be honest with you, when I saw the number on the paper, I was like, we rich! We rich! Ah, yes, Lord, thank you, Jesus. Won't he do it? Won't he do it? Not knowing that, hold on, no, you're not. Because number one, you're paying taxes. Number two, now you have to pay payroll. Number three, you got to buy equipment and all that. And I was like, oh. Oh, so we're not moving on up like the Jeffersons with the cleaners downstairs. That's not what we're doing? Oh, okay. So I'm still wearing these Reeboks? That's right. Okay. But I saw my pops gradually build and grind. And so that discipline that you and your mom were talking about, that steadfastness, I saw that. And I'm going to be honest, never in a million years. I never wanted to be an entrepreneur. Never. I mean, you want to talk about Silk Sonic skate to me. No, I was skating away. Okay. I couldn't skate away fast enough because in my mind, I'm playing ball. Okay. I'm playing ball. I'm in high school and all these things. And I'm going to go to college and I'm going to play ball and all of these things. But ultimately, I'm going to be a history teacher, right? I'm going to be an educator. I'm going to be a high school coach. And that's my path. And even when I started working in the business, because now when football season was over, my job was to take over the Weekly Watson. Because one of the things that my dad taught me, and to this day, we talk about this almost on a daily basis. We talk about networking and relationships, and it's all about relationships. And sometimes we do things that are unorthodox and we keep things that most people would throw away because of relationships. And so he wanted to ensure that a Miller was always going to be in Weekly Watson. So when Mike Blagg and his brothers and all them walked in, the owners of Weekly Watson, they always saw Miller because it was based on a relationship that they said, here's the keys to the contract. So I took over that contract, even knowing that this is just, a job or whatever, but I never thought about being an entrepreneur. When I went to college, now trust me, you met my dad and my dad can be my dad is, is my dad. And he, in his mind, when he really started building this business and it was growing exponentially, he also knew the end game for himself. And he wanted someone else within the family to take this thing over. So he started planting seeds back when I was still playing college ball. And I was just like, no. And even when I became a graduate assistant football coach, I'm thinking, okay, well, now he's really going to let it go. Yeah. When I became a full-time coach, I'm like, he's really, really, really going to let it go now. No. And so, but I remember sitting in my living room when I was in New Mexico and started thinking, well, what am I going to do now? This was the transitional period between the end of football and before the beginning of me being a recruiter for the university. So I'm kind of in this holding pattern. Yeah, I'm sending things out. to try to keep hope alive, as Reverend Jesse Jackson would say, to be a college football coach. And I've got some pretty good feelers out there, but nothing really that I can chew on. And so what am I going to do? And there's this little voice kind of creeping up in the back of my mind, and it's Pops. And I'm like, no. So I'm trying to, get that back down, and it keeps creeping. And I'm like, no. But I was thinking about all the foundational things that he instilled, that I watched with my parents. I watched in the struggle of it all. And it was, now I look back and I'm so grateful. I think everybody says that, right? But when you're going through it, it's like, oh, brother, no. No, let's run back to comfort, because I'll never forget when the company lost that very big contract of the school district. And it was no fault of the company not doing the job and all that. It was literally a difference of opinion and personality. And that was a major blow, to the tune of a 5-year stint, right, of uncertainty. And it's like, why would I ever want to put myself in that, when I know that I can, do the proverbial clock in, clock out, and everything is good? Why would anybody want to go through those things? Has always been my thought process. But to see him build that, and then after 16 years of being on the college level, literally stepping into those footsteps of what was laid before me, regardless of if I ever decided that was truly going to be the path or not, that was still laid for me.
Yeah. That, there's so much that's playing over in my mind when we talk about building generational wealth. And as I'm just thinking about, healing to optimization, and really want to drive this home, because I don't know if we often bring the intention of financial healing is so important, especially with our community, and not really making that connection that when you have a financially healed family who can create this wealth for the next generation, they don't have to encounter things that the previous generation did. Not in the same way. You're still going to have your challenges, but you're not facing the same kinds of struggles that moms and pops had to face. And I think that that's a big piece, that as much as you fought it, you had somewhere to come back to, pick it up, and yes, have a job, but you still, what I've been able to witness is you still brought Draco Miller into what you're doing. You're still bringing lead into building your father's company in a way that perhaps he wasn't able to do that.
And it's so interesting. Yes, Rod, you hit the nail right on the head with that, because I don't officially know what my title is. One day I'm the owner, the next day I'm the COO, the next day I'm the CEO, and the next day, if you say another thing, you're going to be OUT. But to be able to step into the family business, and I'll be quite frank with everyone that's listening. Am I 100? Is Draco Miller 100% in the family business? No, but I'm gonna tell you this: that's the luxury that I have.
Sure.
That's the luxury of a family business, and being able to. My dad told me this, and I had to scratch my head. He said, I was sitting in Katy at my home in Katy, and he and I were talking. And I was talking about, Lead You. And at that time, I didn't have a name for it. I just knew that I wanted to be a motivational speaker. I knew that I wanted to mentor and develop. And I knew that I wanted to do it with individuals and groups, athletics, non-athletes, you know, the whole shebang, corporations, whatever, right? And he said, "Can I ask you a question, son?" I said, "Yes." He said, "I hear you talking about, you know, this next step that you're getting ready to take. And I hear you talking about going to all of these people. And I hear you talking about being a consultant for them and helping them strategize and fix things that they may not be able to see because of blinders and all that stuff." I said, "Yeah, Pops, that's man." And I'm getting excited because I'm thinking he's getting excited, right? And he said, "Well, I'm sorry. I'm going to be selfish here." And I said, "What are you talking about?" And please excuse my language. He said, "Well, why the hell hadn't you called my company to see if I need some consultation?" To see if we, and I said, I literally scratched my head and went, "Well, dang, you know,
You sure got a point.
I said, Pops, you got a point. Let me ask you, do you?" He said, "Yes."
Wow.
And the thing I love about my dad is he's brutally honest. You're either gonna love him or you're gonna hate him, but you're always gonna know where he stands. And somebody out there listening is probably gonna say, "Wait, were you talking about you or you talking about your dad?" Because I am cut from his cloth. You're either gonna love me or hate me, but you're gonna always know where I stand.
Yeah,
And
for
so
sure.
I said, "Okay, so I drove to my hometown, Brownwood, and he and I had about a 4-hour long lunch meeting.
Wow.
And we talked about everything under the sun. And then I said, "Okay, the next day," I said, "tomorrow, let's sit down in the office and I want to hear your vision. I want to hear your purpose. I know the company, right? I know the shell of the company because every summer, even when I was in college playing ball, every summer I went back and worked in the family business because the biggest time of year for the business is the summer program, what we call it. That's when we're stripping and waxing and beautifying the campuses, right, for the return of the students in the fall. So from May to the second week of August, that's peak season. And so I did that every summer. And I ran the summer crew, I ran the floor crew and all these things so that back then my dad had a partner and, you know, they could go off and go get more contracts and all that. So I knew the shell of the company, but I had been away. But, you know, I wasn't there day to day. I didn't know, you know, what's the morale of the staff? You know, what's professional development looking like? What's leadership training looking like? What's mentorship? You know, what does it look like? And so we talked and I'm taking notes and then I go to each campus and they know me. Some of them know of me and some of the staff have no clue who I am. And so I'm kind of that fly on the wall and I'm just observing and I'm taking copious notes and I go out to Early and I go to the 5 campuses in Early and I go to Brownwood and I go to Brownwood High School, which is this, you know, this huge campus, right? And I'm going to the medical facilities that we have and the doctor's offices and just the regulatory businesses and I'm just, you know, just kind of watching, taking my notes and all this stuff. And I'm meeting back with him, much like a consultant would do.
Sure.
And I just said, you know, there's some really good stuff going on here. And there's some things that are not being maximized that in turn are not maximizing your company. And he said, "Why do you think I called you?" Wow. Because the thing about my dad was my dad knew I have an idea, I have a business plan, I'm going to insert this thing. I know how to be successful because everything, if you recall, I said everything is based on relationships. And anyone within I'll say 200-mile radius, but I could probably go further. If you said Draco Miller or begin to put, "Oh man, yeah, you could say I'm from, y'all, you don't know my people, I'm from Dallas." And then he say, "What part?" And then you say South Oak Cliff. And then he says, "Where?" And then somebody says this and, "Oh man, do you know?" Man, wow. But you know, it doesn't matter where. Wow. So wow. I'm sitting and I'm like, okay, you know, he's Mr. Network, he's Mr. Relationship, and that's what he's good at. And he said, "You know, son, I'm not necessarily good at the day-to-day stuff, You know, he always teasingly says, you know, you're an educator, so you know how to talk that education lingo.
You do that.
He said, I'm not an educator. I just tell it like it is.
Yeah.
And then he'll say, you know, you're HR. I said, Pops, trust me, I am not HR. Yeah, you're HR. I'm not an HR guy. And he said, I need you to put the plan together.
Yeah.
And I need you to implement it. And I need you to look and implement and set up this company just like you would if you were going, if Google asked you to come in. If whatever, Tom, Dick, and Harry Incorporated asked you to come in. And so he said, and obviously, not because you're my son, but because I value what you bring to the table, I'm gonna pay you. Well, that was music to my ears right there. You know, I almost want to say, but why didn't you leave that? No, I'm just saying, but, you know, so I started that and then I had to stop and I said, whoa, wait a minute now. So I'm telling myself, hey, you know, everybody in my family and everybody back home calls me Tony. Because you know, my dad's name is Draco as well. And so I said, hold on, Tony, wait a minute. Did he just cast the line out there in the water?
Right.
Did he just bamboozle you with this fishing lure that you didn't see coming? Oh, okay. So, and if you asked him, yeah, he did, and he was just slowly reeling it in.
Yeah.
Because all of a sudden I went from a consultant doing all of these things to a COO, to a CEO, to I'm being introduced as this is my son, you know, this is the owner of the company. And every time he did that, I look and everybody said, oh, you're moving back to Brown. Whoa. Wait, where did this come? I live in Katy, Texas.
Let's establish that
Which is
first.
about 4 and a half hours from Brownwood. I live in Katy.
Right.
But I was able to utilize the same tools. You know, I started with the company doing staff development. Most people think that you have to be this major company, this major corporation with 200 and 300 and 400 employees to do staff development, you know, to put on seminars, to teach them things outside of whatever your specific company does. And that's so not the case. People think, oh, well, it's a mom and pop type business, right? Or a small business, and you don't do those things. Well, I will come and tell you that you probably needed more there than at bigger corporations and companies, because sometimes the turnover rate is a little bit higher and it affects you a lot more than a company with 300-400 students, or personnel. If you're a small business and you have 15 employees, you're counting on all those 15 employees to mesh, to come together, to work together, to want to come to work. And if one leaves, that adds more pressure now on the 14, and then you get a couple of, you know, and so it's more so needed. So I started doing those things, and I saw it really just take hold, and I saw the thirst, if you will, from the employees to want to dive into this development thing that Tony was talking about, that Draco Jr. was talking about, you know, this real world experience, even though the employees range in age of 19 all the way up to 50 something. And so, but it was really cool to be able to take the flow of what I do and see it working in a personal way, that being the family business.
And I have to say this, because your dad, my first impression of your dad, man, left a not just positive impression, but life changing. It wasn't, all I can say, the authenticity that your dad brings, I could definitely see why he would be known all over Texas.
Mhm.
Because your dad in that short period of time was very personable and made me feel like I mattered and I counted in that moment. And that's something that's huge. And he didn't say much, but the way that he showed value to my service and to my company,
Yeah.
that was big for me. You know,
Yeah.
and I'll just share this, that, you know, we established a certain number for my contract when I came out there.
Mhm.
And it was your dad that said, no.
Yep.
No, we not you. Listen, we're gonna take care of you. And he did. And I locked my keys into my car.
I forgot about that.
On my way leaving from Brownwood, locked my dang keys in the car. But the way that your dad approached the situation and made sure that I was taken care of, I knew that that was something, that was a lifestyle for him. And that really left a life-changing experience for me, because I want that same authenticity as my staff, as I build a staff. I want that, because those are the things that really matter. Those are the qualities that matter. And again, the apple don't fall too far from the tree. And that's the thing I think that we both probably really esteem about each other's quality, because when you come from a family of such strong work ethic, it shows up in you, whether you're on the football team or you're doing drills or the way that you coach.
Yep.
And I'm going to highlight again, the way that you transformed even the lobby in the was it the SU or SU?
Yeah, the Cub.
The Cub, thank you.
Yeah.
The way you transformed that lobby and the way you placed the furniture and the showcase for awards and trophies in your offices, those student offices, that was immaculate. And that was something our campus needed to feel good, as my mother talked about, the aesthetic parts.
Yes.
And oftentimes we cast such a negative perspective on beauty. But
Yep.
beauty is so important. Some may just say it's just vanity, but those are the things that really attract us. That appeal is something very important. And then when I come back to New Mexico and see this stadium, I'm thinking, you know where my mind went.
Uh-huh.
Well, we didn't have this.
Where was this when we exactly
in the locker room? You know, I mean, we had a good locker room when we were there, but I'm looking at the quality of what you were able to design for a person with no experience to do this. It was just top notch, man. And so thank you for what you have continued to do. And thank you to your father for raising a profound individual who shares a birthday with President Barack Obama.
That's right.
President Barack Obama.
Yes.
And I have to say that because my birthday is one day before this brother.
One day, yep.
Of Leos in the house. So, well, man, tell us, one, where we could find you. Tell us a little bit more about your upcoming podcast, and then any final words that you want to share.
So I have been tinkering, and I have been contemplating and thinking, how do I want to quote unquote build this thing? And for the listeners out there, they may think, wow, you're just starting. We've always known that, and the answer to that is yes and yes. You know, I've always been one to lead, develop, and mentor. It was just in various capacities, and now I'm doing that full time, along with running the family business. And so I am in the middle, and have been for about 9 months now. I am in the middle of writing a book, and I have I have been told probably for the last, I'm going to say on a conservative number, 7 years. They would say, Coach Miller or Boss Man, why haven't you write a book? Because first of all, there's the Dracoisms, and then there's all the leadership development that I've done. And I finally decided that I wanted to write a book. But the first book that I'm writing is not 100% sold into the realm of leadership. It's more of a a memoir, if you will, because I did spend 20 years in New Mexico. That's still strange for me to say, but I did spend 20 years in New Mexico, from a student athlete all the way up to an administrator. And there's a bunch of stories, and I want to tell that story, and it's going to talk about the ebbs and flows. I'm going to be honest with the listeners right now. I started off with a bang, and I got 3 chapters, bang, 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 just like that. I mean, the outline literally came to me as I was driving from my home in Katy to do work in Brownwood. And I had to literally pick up my phone and start doing voice recordings. And before I knew it, I had the outline of the book and each chapter and what each chapter was going to talk about. And so then I started writing it, and it felt so good. Now, listen, I am not a writer. I've never taken a writing course, and it could be the most horrific thing when an editor finally reads this. But it felt amazing writing it. And then the pause button was pressed. And I finally got to unstick the pause button 3 days ago.
Nice.
And it felt so good, because it was just like the proverbial riding a horse, right? You get right on, or riding a bike, if you will. And I just started clickety clacking. So my goal is, by the end of this year, or before the end of 2020, my book is going to be done. And then I can start my next 2 books, which I already know what they're going to be. They will be 100% in the realm of Lead You. So talking about leadership development, mentor development, personal development, because I have all of this knowledge that's sitting in my Surface laptop that I taught when I was at Eastern. I taught a 13-week course on Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People. I've taught, we read so many books in my time in campus life, and I would teach leadership, and all the nuggets that I pulled from the various leadership gurus that we brought on campus and that I've attached to. I've got so many files that they're just screaming to be placed in a book. So I'm gonna do that. So right now I'm in the middle of writing a book. People can, they can find me first on LinkedIn, just at Draco, D-R-A-C-O Miller, Draco Miller. You can find me. I'm on LinkedIn, and it's my bio is on there. It's going to tell you my story of how I got going and what I've done. I've had the unbelievable pleasure within the last 6 months to a year to be a keynote speaker at various entities. Just recently for Martin Luther King Day, the celebration, my hometown called me up, and I was the keynote speaker for the 10th annual celebration. That was amazing. So you can find me on LinkedIn. You can find me on Instagram. I will be honest with you. I finally had the chance today to get my Lead You Instagram account going. So go to IG, and that one is Lead You 22. Lead You 22 on Instagram. You can find the Lead You, and I'm going to be posting on there, whether it be pictures of me at various events or what people may say about me. I'm going to do leadership development little posts there. And the other thing that I want to do is I want to start a podcast that is different than most leadership podcasts. Because what I want to do is I want to dive into some of the pre-book things, if you will. There's going to be topics, and we're going to give tangible things that people can take from this podcast and go out. So I'm going to work. I've never done a podcast. I've been on a podcast like right now, but I have never structurally done these things. I'm the old guy now when it comes to social media and this new electronical thing. No, I don't know how to do any of this stuff. So I'm a baby. I'm learning. So if somebody wants to reach out to me, I'm old school. Shoot me an email.
I got somebody for you. Oh, shoot an email. No.
Hey, listen, I'm just saying, I
shoot
put
an
it out
email.
there. I have an email. It's lead.u@outlook.com. So if you want me to come be a speaker for you, shoot me an email at lead.u@outlook.com. Heck, call me on my cell phone. Listen, my cell phone is out there, 325-642-8368. I've had the same number for over 20 years. It is not going to change. 325-642-8368. I know. So, you know, just if you Google me, you're going to see me and you're going to see my dad. My dad is the older guy. I'm the younger guy. Both of our names are Draco, but I'm also working on a website to tie all of this together. And Rod, when I tell you now, don't laugh at me when I tell you this. I just saw a way that you that you can connect all of your social medias on one I think it's called Linktree or what's it called?
You know what? Listen, do not feel bad. That's why I have help, because I know that this is not doing all this whole social media thing.
Yeah.
I have others that make me look real good, and it's such a blessing to have. And I have them for you if you need.
We're gonna have to talk about that because I may need to get a team, because people may look at my stuff and say, brother, you're a professional, but your stuff look real.
I got you. Screen grab coaching, wonderful. I will recommend, and unless you feel like you can do it or you got somebody else, I got a resource for you.
Well, we're gonna talk about that, because I want to put it out there that folks, I'm really accessible. Again, you know, I want folks to know this. Although I'll say it this way, you know, it is very nice to be paid for what you give. But one of the things that I want to be known for is a selfless person, someone that always gives of himself to something that is greater than myself. And so when I say that it's a business, it's also a passion of mine. So there may be now, and I don't want people to take advantage of this in a negative way, but there may be someone out there or a group or an athletic department or something that says, man, I would love to have you come speak, but I can't afford you. Yes, you can. You just don't know what that number is. So reach out to me, because above anything, I value people. And I want to change the lives of people. And I believe the good Lord put me on this earth to do just that in various capacities. So that's what I'm about. That's what I want to do. So Lead U 22 on Instagram. LinkedIn is just Draco Miller. Shoot me an email, shoot me a text, or call me, and I will help you any way that I can.
And what they say, I'm Rod Chambers, and I approve of this message. Because I know it to be true. And if I can cast my vote for the title of your podcast, it's been like sitting in my spirit for the last I
got my pen right now.
Miller time.
Miller time.
Miller time. It has to be Miller time, because it's catchy. It's, you know, there's so many nice little innuendos behind that. But I think that would be such a great title for your podcast, man. Nonetheless, it has been great. I will be sure to add your contact information in the YouTube. Please share it once we get it uploaded. Thursday is when we're going to drop it. But man, it has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much in more ways than one, being a brother, a friend, and being one of my first guests for this podcast. Man, love you, and I will talk to you soon.
I sure appreciate it. Thank you, sir.
Get that book done, man.
Look, when I hang up with you, I am going to write again. I had a great session today. I feel so good that I'm going to have another session.
Excellent.
Yes,
Excellent.
sir.
Okay. Well, without further ado, let us end this so you can get back to that book.
All right, brother. All right, y'all take care. Thanks, guys.
Okay, you too. All right, bye-bye.